In this tutorial, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the term composite. And essentially what composite means is to take several elements and combine them into one. And that's what you can see here on the screen. What I've actually done is I've taken some photo images from the Digital Juice collection, Photo Knockouts Collection 1. And these are obviously very different images. I don't think in the same picture you're going to see a snowman and people heavily dressed and people who are dressed for much warmer weather in the same photograph, and I think it's realistic. And that's not really the purpose of what I'm doing here today. I just wanted to show you about the composite and tell you a little bit about some things that may help you with that. First of all, when you're making a composite, you want to think about what your final image should be. Is it indoors? Is it outdoors? If it's outdoors or indoors, you want the elements that you put in there to be very similar to that. That'll help you with your lighting and color, and of course there's many adjustments in for both brightness, contrast, color balance that you can do in Photoshop. And if you have a fine artistic eye, many times you can replicate any condition that you want, but that's for much farther down the road. This is actually a beginning tutorial. So what I'm going to talk to you about is next layers. Whenever you're compositing, each individual element that you bring into the composite should have its own layer. That gives you the ability to manipulate that layer. You can make it larger, smaller. You can change the color balance or something. And as you can see, looking in the lower right hand corner, I've got all of the different layers here. If I turn my background off, you can see that those are just the individual layers in front of it. I can turn each one of those off in turn and bring them back on. Now, these are designed for this specific purpose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually bring one back up and show you how we do this. I will get my magic wand tool, and that's something that we talked about a little earlier, and click on the transparent part of this image, holding the shift key down to make sure that I've gotten all of it. And what that allows me to do is select everything but the little girl, but that's not what I want. So I'm going to go up to select, and I'm going to invert that selection. I will cut her out and then come back over to the original one, add another layer for her, and then I will paste her on this layer. Okay, now you can see what a much higher resolution image it is, and we'll get our move tool and move her around a little bit. We could leave it like that because that gives some perspective as far as the relative size. You see in this picture, she's about half the size of the two older women, and that's going to look pretty good. You can get some relative size here as well. But let's say we didn't want that. We wanted to put her back there with the rest of them. We would go to Edit, Transform, and we would scale it. Now, one of the neat things about scaling or changing the size of a layer is that you can hold the Shift key down, and as you drag these corners to make it smaller, it will maintain the relative perspective or the aspect ratio of your picture. And that's just the relationship of how tall it is to how wide it is. If you wanted to, you wouldn't have to do this, and you could make her look much shorter or much thinner. But let's say we didn't want that. We want it to kind of maintain what she looks like there, and we'll just go ahead and hit our enter key so that will the scaling tool will go away. Now under that there are some other tools. If you go to Edit, Transform, there's the rotate tool, which will allow you to turn the image one way or the other. There is a tool called skew, and skew will allow you to create some pretty interesting visual effects with it. As you can see, anytime you do something like that, if you're testing out and you don't like the results, just hit Control Z and it will undo what you've done. The next little tool under there is distort. And distort will allow you to almost make an image look like it is flat and laying on the road. We could do that with this one if we liked, but we're not going to. And then on down there's a perspective tool, and a perspective tool is kind of like the genie coming out of a bottle tool. It allows you to change literally the perspective of the image. The final tool that's in that grouping is the warp tool, and the warp tool can be a lot of fun to mess with. If you start using this grid, you can change the way that people look, and it can be a lot of fun to play with. If you have friends you want to take their pictures, warp is a great one to deal with, but we're not going to do that to this young lady, so we'll undo it and leave that there. Now, finally, before I go, I want you to think about perspective of the shot. Obviously, people who are farther back in the shot would be smaller than people who are up close. The exception this young lady is supposed to be right up front, so we're going to leave her large. But you want to think about that when placing your images, and as you put each layer, each individual layer in your composite, think about, does it look real to you? And if not, what do you need to do to change it? I hope this has been helpful. Thanks for watching.